It is 1955. Hollywood's most dangerous man is sitting alone at a corner table in a restaurant on Sunset Boulevard. He is not looking for trouble. He never does. He has a drink in front of him, a cigarette between two fingers. His heavy eyelids are half closed, the way they always are, like the world is slightly beneath his attention. Then it happens. Across the room, a powerful studio producer grabs a waitress by the arm. Hard. She flinches. She tries to pull away. He laughs. His friends laugh. Nobody at the other tables moves. Nobody except one man. Robert Mitchum puts down his drink. He stands up, slowly, without urgency, without panic. The room goes silent before he even takes a step. That is the kind of man he is. The question is, how does a boy who spent his teenage years starving on freight trains, who broke rocks on a chain gang in Georgia, who fought 27 professional boxing matches just to eat, how does that boy become the one man in a room full of cowards who stands up without hesitation? Let's go back to the beginning. Act 1. The Boy from Nowhere. It starts in 1917, Bridgeport, Connecticut. Robert Charles Derman Mitchum enters the world on August 6th. His father works on the railroad. 2 years later, his father is dead, killed in a freight yard accident. Robert is 2 years old. He has an older sister and a younger brother. His mother does what she can. But the Great Depression is coming, and survival is the only option. By 14, Robert is gone. He hops a freight train heading south, just like thousands of other desperate boys in Depression-era America. No destination, no plan, just the wind and the open road and nothing to his name. He sleeps in fields. He fights for food. He rides atop boxcars through Georgia in the dead of winter. Then, at 16, he makes a mistake. Savannah, Georgia, he is caught sleeping on a park bench, arrested for vagrancy. A teenage boy with no family, no address, no money. The judge doesn't care. He is sentenced to a chain gang. 50 days. 50 days of breaking rocks under the Georgia sun. Chains on his legs, guards with rifles, men older than him, broken men shuffling in the heat. He escapes. He actually escapes from a Georgia chain gang at 16 years old. He slips his chains and runs into the swamp and nobody catches him. He carries the scars on his legs for the rest of his life. And he never talks about it like it was something dramatic. To him, it was just something that happened. Just another day on the road. He keeps moving. He boxes, 27 professional fights, not as a hobby, as a way to eat. He is big, he is fast, and he hits hard enough that promoters keep calling him back. He wins most of them. He loses some. He gets his nose broken at least once. Probably more than once. He doesn't keep count. But here is the thing about those fights that nobody talks about. Robert Mitchum never gets angry in the ring. Other fighters rage. They talk. They try to intimidate. He just stands there with those half-closed eyes and waits, calm the way a storm is calm before it moves. The men across from him don't know what to do with that. They can't find the nerve to pull. He has already decided the outcome before the bell rings. He doesn't know it yet, but this is exactly how he will stand on a film set 20 years later. Exactly how he will walk across a restaurant toward a drunk producer in 1955. The ring teaches him something no acting coach ever could. Stillness is power. He works factories after the fights dry up. He shovels coal. He writes poetry that nobody reads. He is a ghost drifting across America, and nobody in Hollywood has any idea he exists. Not yet. Act 2. The accident called acting by his early 20s, Robert Mitchum has a wife, a child, a job operating a machine in a factory in Long Beach, California. The job nearly destroys him. Not physically, mentally. The monotony, the same motion, repeated hundreds of times a day. He starts having what people in 1942 would call a nervous breakdown. Something in him shuts down. He needs to do something with his hands, his voice, his body. He walks into a local theater group. Not because he wants to be an actor, because he needs somewhere to put the energy that the factory is suffocating. And then something strange happens. People can't stop looking at him. It is the eyes, heavy, half-closed, like a man perpetually bored by the world, but somehow more present in it than anyone else in the room. It is the jaw, the size of him, the absolute stillness. There is something in Robert Mitchum that the camera immediately understands, even if he does not. He starts getting small roles in films, westerns mostly, background work. He doesn't care about any of it. He shows up. He does what they tell him. He goes home. Then someone at RKO notices. By 1944 he has a contract. By 1945 he is nominated for an Academy Award for Supporting Actor in a film called The Story of G.I. Joe. He doesn't win. He barely attends. He considers acting a job, not a calling. He has two famous lines about it. The first is that he has two acting styles, with or without a horse. The second is that he learned all his lines 5 minutes before the camera rolled. Both are probably true. Act 3. The night that should have ended him. 1948. Robert Mitchum is one of the biggest stars at RKO. He is 31 years old. He is in the prime of everything. Then the police kick in a door in Laurel Canyon. He is arrested for possession of marijuana. In 1948, this is not a minor offense. This is a scandal. This is the kind of thing that destroys careers permanently. Studios have morality clauses. Newspapers run the story everywhere. Hedda Hopper, the most feared gossip columnist in Hollywood, practically writes his obituary before he even goes to trial. The studio panics. Executives call emergency meetings. They need a statement, an apology, a public display of remorse. Robert Mitchum needs to get on his knees in front of the American public and beg for forgiveness. He refuses. He does not apologize. He does not cry. He does not hire a publicist to soften his image. He pleads guilty, serves 60 days in a prison work camp, and when a reporter asks him through the bars what prison is like, he looks up with those famous sleepy eyes and says it is just like Palm Springs without the riffraff. He goes to jail, he sweeps floors, he plays cards with the guards, he finishes his sentence and walks out into the California sun. And here is where the studio's entire model of controlling a movie star collapses. The lines at the box office double. The audience does not want a sanitized, apologetic, perfectly managed celebrity. They want a real man. A man who was arrested, went to jail, and came back without a single bruise on his dignity. They love him more after prison than they did before it. His first film after release, Rachel and the Stranger, becomes one of the highest-grossing films of the year. The studio is speechless. Robert Mitchum is not. Act 4. The Preacher with Hate on His Knuckles, 1955. Charles Laughton, one of the most respected directors of his era, is shooting a dark fairy tale about evil dressed as religion. The film is called The Night of the Hunter. He wants Robert Mitchum to play a serial killer who poses as a preacher. A man with love tattooed on the fingers of his right hand and hate tattooed on the fingers of his left. A man who marries widows and murders them for their money. A creature of absolute calculated menace wearing the mask of the holy. Laughton is not sure Mitchum can do it. Mitchum does it in one take. What appears on screen is not a performance in any traditional sense. It is something else. It is the dirt roads of Georgia, the freight trains, the chain gang. Every drunk bully Robert Mitchum watched destroy someone smaller than himself on the road. Every corrupt authority figure who believed his badge made him untouchable. He doesn't act the darkness, he remembers it. The film is a masterpiece. Critics call it one of the greatest American films ever made. The image of Robert Mitchum riding on horseback across the silhouetted landscape, singing a hymn in his deep voice while hunting two children through the night. It enters the permanent memory of cinema. He moves on to the next film. He barely mentions The Night of the Hunter in interviews. He treats it the same way he treats everything. It was a job. He did it. He went home. Act 5. The Secret. Every director knew here is something that very few people in Hollywood will say out loud. Directors who worked with difficult stars, men who memorized every line, showed up 4 hours early, demanded 17 takes, needed constant reassurance. Those directors earned their money. Every single day was a negotiation. Directors who worked with Robert Mitchum didn't have that problem. He showed up on time. Usually, he knew his lines, usually within 5 minutes of shooting. He hit his mark. He looked directly at the camera with those enormous, unreadable eyes, and then it was done. One take. The director of Cape Fear, J. Lee Thompson, said years later that Mitchum arrived on set and simply became the character without any visible process. No warm-up, no method, no conversation about motivation. He just became the most terrifying man in the room, shot the scene, and went to the bar. This is the deepest secret of Robert Mitchum's career. The laziness was never laziness. The indifference was never indifference. What looked like a man who didn't care was actually a man who had processed the darkness of the world so completely, so early, so thoroughly, on roads and chain gangs and in freight cars at midnight, that he could reach it whenever he needed it without any preparation at all. The role was already inside him. He just had to point the camera. Back to Sunset Boulevard, 1955. The drunk producer is still holding the waitress by the arm. Robert Mitchum walks across the room, not fast, not dramatic. The way a man walks when he is completely certain of what is about to happen. He stops, he looks at the producer, and he says something quiet. Nobody else in the room hears exactly what it is. The producer lets go of the waitress's arm. That is all. Mitchum does not call a publicist. He does not make a statement. He does not turn it into a story. He goes back to his table, picks up his drink, and finishes his cigarette. The room stays quiet for a long time after that. This is who Robert Mitchum is. Not the headlines, not the prison term, not the films. This. A man who does not hesitate when hesitation is cowardice. Who does not perform bravery because bravery is not a performance for him. It is simply what you do when nobody else will. Act 6. The Long Shadow. The years pass. He makes film after film. In 1962, he becomes Max Cady in the original Cape Fear. A man so genuinely threatening that Gregory Peck, playing the hero trying to stop him, admitted privately that Mitchum scared him. Not the character, Mitchum. In 1973, he makes The Friends of Eddie Coyle. A small, tired, forgotten film about a small, tired, forgotten criminal at the end of his road. Mitchum plays it with zero vanity and total conviction. Film scholars still talk about it as one of the greatest American acting performances of the era. He works into his 70s. He never takes a role more seriously than it deserves and never takes one less seriously than it deserves. He is the same in every decade. Unreadable, present, unbothered. Young actors watch him the way young boxers watch old champions. Clint Eastwood studies the stillness. Robert De Niro studies the naturalism. Jack Nicholson understands that the road to effortless is not effortless, it is just deeply hidden. The end. On July 1, 1997, Robert Mitchum dies at his home in Santa Barbara, California, lung cancer. He is 79 years old. The Hollywood that made him, the studio system, the morality clauses, the carefully managed public images, that Hollywood is already gone. He outlasted all of it. He outlasted the men who tried to control him, the columnists who tried to destroy him, the executives who needed him to apologize. None of them made him smaller. He made 118 films over 50 years. He was nominated for a Golden Globe. He received a Life Achievement Award from the American Film Institute. He was called, by multiple critics across multiple decades, the most naturally gifted American screen actor of his generation. He never once seemed impressed by any of it. The legacy. There's a photograph, black and white, taken sometime in the late 1940s. Robert Mitchum is sitting sideways in a chair, one arm draped over the back of it. His jacket is open. A cigarette hangs from his lip. His eyes are half closed. He is looking directly into the camera. The expression on his face says one thing. It says he has nothing to prove, not to you, not to anyone, not ever. That expression is the entire philosophy. You do not need their approval. You do not need their forgiveness. You do not need to apologize for being exactly who you are. You do not need to perform humility for people who don't deserve your attention. You stand up when standing up is right. You stay seated when everyone else is panicking. You keep your hands steady and your eyes open, and you do your job so well that the people trying to replace you realize they never could. Robert Mitchum was arrested, jailed, blacklisted, underestimated, dismissed, and written off at least 3 separate times in his career. He made 118 films. He never stopped working. He never apologized. The world belongs to those who don't ask for permission. Authenticity is everything. If this video moved you, subscribe, hit the bell. Leave a comment below with one word that describes Robert Mitchum. One word. Let's see what you've got.